They try and err on making sure.
Narrative has become such an important part. What are we trying to do?
Know about it, yeah.
Here's what we
Find
did.
out when it's too late.
Remember when we did that? There are a lot of people who are just, and right now, leading, explaining, and bringing people in. So I think
I'll come down and we'll have a cup of coffee or something.
will help a lot.
No.
Information.
All right, good morning, everyone. Why don't I begin by calling the meeting to order? I appreciate everyone being here today and particularly want to welcome our newest board member, Council President Randy Schubring. And we will come back to Randy because we will need to be swearing him in with his oath of office, and we will do that in a little farther down in our agenda. But for now, let's begin with our roll call. And Tammy, if I could ask you to please call the roll.
Yes, Baker,
Present.
Campbell,
Present.
Norton,
Present.
Rybeck,
Present?
Schubring,
Present.
Tyne,
Here.
Wheelock,
Here.
and Williams.
Here.
I would say here, but
And then also for those of you participating remotely, we would like to please ask you to note the reason for doing so. It could be that you're traveling or have a scheduling conflict that precludes you from being here in person, but we need to do this as part of our record. So why don't I ask Member Campbell first,
I'm out of town.
and Member Baker,
I'm also out of town at a previously scheduled deal.
thank
So-
you very much. Next, we have the motion to approve the agenda. I feel like I'm much louder now all of a sudden, so
it's a commanding voice.
there you go.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. And Tammy, would you please call the roll?
Baker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Rybeck,
Aye.
Schubring,
Aye.
Tyne,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
and Williams.
Aye.
And then is there a motion to approve the December meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
A second, thank you. Moved and seconded. Tammy, again, will you please call the roll?
Baker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Rybeck,
Aye.
Schubring,
Aye.
Tyne,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
and Williams.
Aye.
Wonderful. And next, I'd like to come back to Council President Schubring and invite him to participate in his oath of office. And we're going to stand right over by
I
the
will
mic
be
over there and
honored.
share it.
This is fun.
Stand on either side of it so that we can lift it this way. So if you would please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Randy Schubring, do solemnly swear
I, Randy Schubring, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
of the Board of Directors of the Destination Medical Center Corporation
of the Board of Directors of the Destination Medical Center Corporation
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you. Welcome to the board, and we look forward to working with you. Great. And I will also note that Member Tyne is signed up for another term on the board, and so we will have him designate that in writing, but because he is already on the board, we don't need to have you receive the oath of office. But let's acknowledge that, and another round of applause for his continued work. Now I'd like to open the public comment period. All the commentators are asked to state their name and keep their comments to no more than 2 minutes. Do we have anyone that wishes to address the board? And I will ask Cody first if there is anyone online that we can see. There's no one online. All right, thank you. Is there anyone here today that would like to provide public comments?
Good morning.
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 I need your patience today. I lost the lens in my right eye. I'm scheduled for surgery. So my vision is very bad today, as you can probably tell by my printout. Brenda Quay, owner of R&R Properties of Mankato LLC, which owns real estate which has been the subject of a funding request to DMC and the City of Rochester. I am here today to raise procedural and equitable protection concerns to the DMC that arise out of the 9/20/24 Baker Tilly third-party financial review of our workforce housing project, an analysis that was egregiously flawed. Although engaged by the City of Rochester for the analysis of our project request for TIF funding, it appears that the DMC staff also relied upon the analysis when analyzing our joint application. The 6-page memo was provided to us after the September DMCC board meeting, so we had no opportunity to review and/or critique the memo prior to our project being voted upon by this board. We still do not have all the pages of the report. We first requested the backup to the 6-page memo, the sensitivity analysis, national range of investment by product type, and recommended funding levels in October of 2024, but our request was ignored. 4 months later, we still have not received the backup information which is necessary to understand the financial picture laid out to this board by Baker Tilly. If it was inaccurate, and many significant items in the memo were, the decisions made were based upon faulty inputs. Our January 2025 formal response to the Baker Tilly memo was provided to numerous City of Rochester officials, including Cindy Steinhauser, Ren Svenby, and Josh Johnson. We are here today to notify you of these procedural problems. Baker Tilly's decision to reduce our land value by 70% should have stuck out to both the City of Rochester and the DMC staff as arbitrary and capricious. As part of the DMC TIF negotiations, the city disagreed with our land value. Josh Johnson requested we pay for an appraisal of our own land in August. We jointly agreed to an NMAI appraiser to use, and the appraisal was completed at the end of September. The value was right in line with the 2027 land value we were carrying in our pro forma all along. We are sharing this information with the DMCC board because we want you to be aware that your decision to deny our application was tainted by this faulty third-party analysis of our project. We had communicated some of our frustrations to Dr. Otley of the DMC EDA board, and we expect to put a second application for DMC support of our project in front of DMC staff shortly. We expect an open and fair review of our application. Thank you.
Any other public comments? We will now close the public comments, and I would ask the previous public commentator, Ms. Quay, to please put your concerns in writing and send them to Patrick Sieb. I am hopeful that you can appreciate the feedback that we've given you, at least in this public setting, about the priorities of the Destination Medical Center, our desire to think about the strategic opportunities, about our investment, and particularly, and I will speak for myself, not for the board in this sense, given the amount of public investment that has happened on Discovery Walk, which abuts the property, across the street with the premier buildings that are now there, the investment in Soldiers Field, and the proximity between the connection between those amenities and downtown, I am reluctant to think that we need to prompt further investment with public funds unless it is related to our core strategic priorities around maybe a commercial presence on the first floor of a development, perhaps deeper affordable housing, because there is not enough public funding to deal with our affordable housing challenge, by subsidizing something closer to market rate housing. There is a desperate need in this community, to be sure, but there is insufficient public funding to reach all of those, and we are not willing to set a precedent about a modest affordability level or subsidizing market rate housing. It is an attractive site, and we would love to see you be able to develop this, but we are hoping that you have heard what some of our concerns and our priorities are, and if you have an intention to submit another application, that those interests on our part are clearly reflected in whatever proposal is submitted. And any concerns you have about the process, I have found it to be reliable, to meet our needs, to have very professional staff. This is not personal. They are trying hard to meet our priorities about the information we need for good decision-making, and we need to find a way to better address your concerns about lack of information in a process that may not feel as transparent as you would like it to be. Some of this is by nature designed to be private, but anything that we receive here for our own decision-making is public information, and the same with the city of Rochester for the mayor and the city council for their decision-making. So we will try to address whatever concerns you have, but please put them in writing and send them to Patrick Sieb. We're going to move on now.
Madam Chair, can I just
Member
say,
Ryback?
I agree 100% with what you said, so it's well stated, and I would certainly agree with your points.
Thank you. We'll move on now to the chair's report, and I'd like to actually look a little bit forward and make sure that the board and members of the public have a sense of what's coming up on our agenda. And next up will be March 26th. The Board Executive Committee will meet to review and approve the 2024 Private Investment Report to deed. We do this annually. It's necessary in order for us to meet our requirements to the state and in order for funds to be released for the work that we do here. That meeting is open to the public, and members of the board, other than those that are on the executive committee, are certainly welcome to attend, but not required to attend. And you can do that either in person or virtually. And then on May 22nd, we will hold our regular meeting, followed by our annual collaborative session with the City Council, the County Board of Commissioners, the DMC EDA, and of course our Mayo representative that participates or on both of those. The agenda for that meeting is still being worked out, but I do expect that we will have the opportunity to discuss DMC's progress over the last decade. And just a couple of additional things. I just want to make sure that I acknowledge our very capable and much appreciated staff member Patrick Sieb, who on December 12th received a very impressive recognition when Finance and Commerce named him a 2024 Minnesota Icon. The Icon Award, yes, round of applause. The Icon Award is given to individuals who have made significant and lasting contributions to Minnesota's business and legal communities. And the award recognizes individuals who have had a successful career and are active contributors to their communities and have demonstrated a commitment to mentoring the next generation of leaders in our state. Patrick was recognized for leading high-performance teams, both at DMCC as well as his previous role with the City of St. Paul or St. Paul Riverfront Corporation. He is a community builder, he's a mentor, and we are very fortunate to have him dedicated to the work here in this community, and he does an effective and credible job on our behalf, and we are very appreciative. So another round of applause. Lastly, before we move on, I also want to acknowledge a correspondence from our venerable member Campbell. And Jim Campbell has served on this board since the inception, and he has been talking about when might it be the right time to make a transition, and he's let the governor's office know as a gubernatorial appointee that he would like to vacate the position as of June 1st of this year, is willing to stay until a replacement by the governor can be appointed and start, but we appreciate all of his service, and we will have much time to recognize that more appropriate and fully and completely at our May meeting, where Member Campbell will be in attendance. But Jim, we're going to give you an opportunity to say a few words now if you would like, or if you would like that we just move on with the agenda, we can do that as well.
Well, you surprised me, Madam Chair. I wasn't prepared to make remarks this morning. I'm actually putting my remarks together for the May meeting, so get ready for that.
All right, we will do that, but I thought since we're here, I needed to share that with the board, as the governor's office will post a vacancy on the DMCC board eminently, and we wanted to make sure that everyone here knew that. And thank you, Jim. We'll come back to you in May.
Thank you.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair.
Member Rybeck.
Knowing how eloquent Member Campbell is, are you going to be paying for overnight lodging? Because that's a Guano ways, but I very much look forward to having
We may have to, yes, exactly. That may turn into a bit of a roast. I'm forewarning you. It sounds like Member Campbell, but we will all look forward to the opportunity to more appropriately acknowledge your service and your contribution to this work at the May meeting.
Thank you.
Members. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there another person interested in public comment?
I'm sorry.
Did you want to make a public comment?
I was going, I'm sorry, I apologize myself, and maybe we can work through this. My name's Andy Maspole, and I'm a landscape architect with WSB, but I'm here for something else on the agenda, the Second Street Connection project, and I was going to comment at that point.
This is your opportunity to provide public comment, even if it's about an agenda item that is before us. So go ahead, and whatever it is you wanted to say, go ahead now.
Sorry, I was a little bit unprepared. I'm gonna pull up an email. We had
Can you step just a little bit closer to the microphone? Thank you.
We had a neighborhood meeting last night regarding that project that's gonna be on your agenda. And I just want to read the letter that the neighborhood wrote. It was, I'll just ad-lib here for a second. It was the most impressive neighborhood meeting I've ever been involved in. I bet I've been in over 100 neighborhood meetings. And this is, okay, thanks. This is what they wrote. So we just met with them last night. We did meet with the neighborhood, and I know, Mayor, you were talking about this at your last meeting, the importance of public engagement on this project. And we did meet with the neighborhood 2 years ago, Emily Lynch and Tim Hawkins, the president, vice president at that time, and they supported this project. And it's actually gotten better since then. So then we met with the current leadership last night. It's now, the neighborhood is now led by kind of a group of individuals. And so we got together with them virtually and presented our plans. And I want to read this letter that they wrote after the meeting last night. Dear Destination Medical Center Corporation Board, we, members of Kutztown Park Neighborhood Association, are writing to voice our support of the Mayflower Apartment Building and the August Kutztown plots as supported by WSB, Dream Architecture, and Gerard Companies. After an initial presentation, we are excited about the community aspects of the plan. We are thrilled with the detailed renderings which consider public access. We like the idea of walk-up windows for local businesses and the focus on gathering places to further define the connection to our neighborhood. Its placement on the rapid transit bus line will facilitate the use of mass transit and connect the residents of more of Rochester, hopefully reducing traffic. The affordable housing units will provide opportunity and stability for people in need. We are already making plans in our heart to gather with our new neighbors in the beautiful outdoor spaces. Our little neighborhood is at the center of lots of change in next couple of years. As the investment and hard work of many become reality, we appreciate this thoughtful and community-focused plan and welcome this addition to our beloved neighborhood. Sincerely, KPNA board members. So, anyway, I wanted to share that. Cindy's going to be presenting a plan, and we continue to plan's been continually evolve, and it's really, even the renderings you're gonna see today are in a sense outdated, and we've added, I know it's not appropriate for me to speak about this, but we've added a coffee shop, a sub shop on the corner, and we've really activated this space. And, and we've addressed the parking. I know the last time, you had mentioned, having a small parking, we have a small parking lot in the back. We got on-street parking. This is just a tremendous plan. It's a tremendous plan. I know you're gonna really enjoy it, so, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now I think I will reclose the public comment period, and we will move on to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Tammy, will you call the roll?
Baker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Rybeck,
Aye.
Schubring,
Aye.
Tyne,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
and Williams.
Aye.
And next, our action item is consideration of the annual report to the legislature. Tammy and Patrick, could you summarize the report for us? We'll give Patrick a minute to get to the table.
Great.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. Each year, the Destination Medical Center is required to provide a report to the state legislature. It's due on February 16th. And we keep evolving this report. This version that you see today is an evolution of prior versions. Really tries to speak to the requirements in the state law about what the report needs to include, and also tries to show the energy of the work going on and the transformation that's going on. It's included in your packet in the full document, and it does get reviewed by the City Council and DMC. City Council reviewed it at its meeting this past week, and of course now it's in front of you for consideration. We do submit it to the legislature and state agency leadership, chair of the Olmsted County Board, and the required elements are found within this document. Tammy, I don't know if there's comments that you want to make as well.
Sure. I would just echo what Patrick has said. This is a requirement that's found in state statute and something that we do on an annual basis. The report requires us to address 5 very specific things, which are listed here on the slide. First, the DMC development plan and any proposed changes that have been made to that plan. Second, progress of projects that have been identified in the development plan. Third, actual project costs and financing sources, including any amount that is being paid for with state aid and any required local contributions. Fourth, estimated costs and financing sources for projects that we anticipate will be started in the next 2 years. And finally, number 5, debt service schedules for all outstanding obligations for debt that has been issued in connection with DMC projects that are identified in our plan.
Are there any questions or comments about the plan? Member Norton?
Yeah, thank you. I had a question about, and I don't think it's required as part of the state plan, but I was looking for some sort of guidance on where the city is with its $128 million requirement. If it's not part of this plan, but if you know that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. The question really refers to, and it's not elaborated in this plan, but the makeup of the $585 million of commitment associated with DMC is really found in 5 different buckets, one of which is contribution from the city of Rochester of $128 million, and that's, I think, the question that you're asking. And the city's obligation to meet that objective. So, Mayor, we will come fully prepared with the answer to that question at the May meeting as a part of our 10-year look back.
Great.
But I would say that what's critically important about that number is the city has to keep pace with its commitment in order to free up the state's commitment. So there is a formula that was created that required the city to be contributing at a pace that would then free up money from the state legislature. So keeping those in balance, and also to know when the city has fully met its obligation, I think is part of what you're after. And
Yes.
we'd be prepared to fully describe that at the next meeting.
Perfect, thank you.
I would
Pat-
also add,
Patrick, can I just interject? Perhaps we could have that ready for the executive session meeting if possible, or at least a preliminary estimate before we submit the report to DEED as part of our agenda item.
so Madam Chair, that report to DEED in April is only of the private, non-public investment.
Yes, but since the executive committee is meeting again in March, perhaps if there's something available, we don't have to wait until May to answer Member Norton's question.
Thank you. Thank you, absolutely. And I'm looking at Brian, treasurer, assistant treasurer. So the report highlights certainly Mayo's recent announcement, and while it may seem like it's been around for a while, it's only been just over 12 months that we've all known about this publicly. And certainly DMC's investments in these areas and the private investment that we've seen through 2023. And I will just finally comment, while this has gone in front of City Council and now in front of you, if there are any, I think, non-substantive changes to the details of the report, I think we would ask that you would consider that as a friendly amendment as we get this in front of many more eyes. People see things that might be adjusted. And so,
We appreciate the need and the value of accuracy, so if it's non-substantive, we would make this approval with that understanding. Is there a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Member Ryback.
Just a quick comment, and I want to build on the mayor's point. There is a requirement we have to report to the state, but every time we do that, there's a teachable moment. And the net of this whole thing, in my mind, is that there was this partnership between the city, the state, Mayo, the community, and others, county, and we're delivering on it. And I just want to keep those metrics in front of us, how much private investment was expected, how we're doing, the point the mayor made and others. And I just think holding that very simple dashboard in front of us, I think we were expected to commit, $4 billion, and we've done $5 billion, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to say, even though that's not in the requirement, use these teachable moments for us to continue to reinforce the idea that we're delivering and over-delivering on a pretty big promise.
Thank you for those comments. I think there's a good opportunity to make sure that we make that very transparent and perhaps in a transmittal letter. The only other request I would ask is, given the flux that exists right now in the Minnesota House of Representatives, I would like the report be sent to all of the representatives versus assuming that we know anything about who holds what leadership position at this point. So,
I think there's less flux as of yesterday.
well, we'll see. We'll see. I remain unconvinced about that. So with that, can we have Tammy call the roll, please?
Baker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Ryback,
Aye?
Schubring,
Aye.
Tyne, Wheelock,
Aye.
and Williams.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes, and now I would welcome Dr. Clark Otley to offer a few comments on behalf of the EDA Board. Good morning, Dr. Otley.
Good morning, Chair Wheelock, members of the board. As we kick off our 2025 meetings and midpoint to the DMC journey that we're all on, preparing for our biggest projects to date, including Link BRT and the Unbound project, I first want to thank you for your excellent guidance and vision as we guide our community through this incredible change and dynamic period. I'd also like to congratulate our City Council President, Randy Schubring. Welcome to the team. As usual, you have a very busy agenda, and we have 6 resolutions in front of you, one of which you just passed. And I want to let you know that the EDA board and our team fully vetted these and are very supportive of the items as mentioned. But before you tackle the resolutions, I want to highlight 2 additional topics for you. The first is our Business Forward Playbook. and then second, our shared lab space journey. The Business Forward Playbook, each of which you will get a copy of, is our attempt to make this journey as seamless as possible. So we all know that through the eyes of a 5-year-old, construction is a wonderful and mythical thing. But as adults, during our commutes and our journeys through the city, that may take on a different feel to it. We'd like to return a little bit of the magic to the construction journey through our team. And so in conjunction with many stakeholders across our community, including our residents, business leaders, and our construction partners, we've developed the Business Forward strategies to help alleviate some of the impacts of construction through community coordination and collaboration, prioritizing access and visibility, and going beyond mere mitigation to actively support our community members and our businesses. When reconstructing Peace Plaza, for instance, we took several strategies which assisted the continued functionality of that space, including phasing underground work, so that the delays and impedance to any business was on the order of hours to days and not weeks to months, engaging with local hotels to make sure that our patients and visitors had great access to their facilities and access to the clinic, as well as providing high visibility signage so that people could continue to engage with our businesses and community resources during the construction processes. During those processes and individualized moving forward, we're gonna have to change our tactics depending on the specifics of the project to make construction as seamless to deliver as possible. Now is a really good time to be kicking this off as we start our Unbound and Link projects. We're engaged with all of our partners, construction and business partners, to accomplish this. We work with lots of different partners in the community, and we're very appreciative to all of them for their insights and guidance. I want to highlight 6 groups that really stepped in with us and helped us gauge community sentiment, business needs to get this right. And those include Hers Women's Clothing, Neighborly Creative, Knudsen Construction, Kraus Anderson Construction, Pasquale's Neighborhood Pizzeria, and Victoria's Restaurant and Wine Bar. Their input was really, really valuable in getting this right, so thank you to them. Next, a little shift to the shared lab space that we've talked about before. We're working very hard on this issue. We think it's a cardinal asset within Discovery Square that's really necessary to accelerate the innovation work in that area. And as we speak with many groups within Mayo and within the community, we're focusing on getting that plan right so that it delivers for you. To your point, Dr. R.T. Ryback, we're really trying to get this, trying to get this right, Doctor. Those include project market fit, synergistic design elements, a solid operating and management model, robust programming, marketing, and recruitment plans. So we will look forward to bringing those recommendations to you in the coming months, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Otley. Appreciate your input and comments to the board on both of those items, and we'll look forward to hearing more about the progress on the shared lab. Thank you for being with us today. All right, we're going to move to the next agenda item, metrics, and I'm going to turn to Patrick to please introduce this item to the board.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we, as a practice, present to you a metrics report. The approach has been historically to pick one of our metrics and to do a bit of a deeper dive into that metric. And that has, I think, served us well as a method to be more granular as we look at particular overarching goals over this 20-year period. Today's presentation, however, isn't about that. It is, I'm going to invite Catherine Malmberg, one of our teammates, to talk about how we are approaching our metrics work in this 10-year milestone moment, and our intent to provide a fulsome report back on the 10-year history at our May meeting. So, Catherine.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Really excited to be here today because we're in 2025 and we're going to be looking back at the first decade of the DMC as we've discussed. And the work is already underway for the backwards looking, right? Looking at the past and sort of saying, okay, here are the 5 goals that were initially established. Very familiar to you all, I'm sure. And the first step is this look back analysis of the 2015 to 2024 period. We have retained a consulting team of eConsult and Ninegret Partners, ESI for short. Their analysis is underway. It's a pretty quick process. It's about a 10-week work phase, so we will be complete in time to present at the May board meeting. So just overlook of the way that they're framing up the look back. Everything that they're looking to track is against those 5 major goals, which are listed there at the top. And they're going to be looking at metrics. Across the bottom there, we've got a list of about 79 proposed metrics so far, but it's really, we're looking to their professional guidance to point to which are the most valuable and to suggest ones we might not even be thinking of. But we're looking at through 3 different lenses here. We're looking geographically through a place-based lens, each of the 6 sub-districts. What do we intend to happen in each of those and what has happened in each of those sub-districts? We're looking through the lens of the 8 core areas that were established in the original plan, right? So these are more typological, like housing and hospitality and biomed tech ecosystem and that sort of thing. And then finally looking at it through the lens of experience and how people are experiencing the district. And there are those, again, hopefully familiar 5 different personas that we've used from the beginning to frame experience. So we're making sure to look at patients, companions, visitors, employee, and of course, residents, key people that are experiencing the district. So the purpose, again, is just measuring progress towards the 5 goals at the highest level, looking at it through those 3 lenses, and ensuring that we're building upon existing planning and tracking efforts and really setting the stage to make it very easy to continue to update these for the next 10 years. So really kind of having a good dashboard of metrics that we can look at very regularly. We anticipate that the report will ultimately look like this, sort of structured with an introduction and conclusion and a chapter about each of the 5 goals. And all the metrics and data will roll up into one of those chapters. So you can expect a report presentation at the May board meeting. There'll be an executive summary, a more lengthy report, and then of course all of the good data backup that will enable us to slice and dice and look at data in many different ways. So that's what I have for you today.
Are there any questions?
Are we going to adopt that resolution?
Question,
Member
Madam Chair,
Williams.
just curious about just kind of, so again, the look back, which is very much, kind of data-driven, is there any kind of qualitative aspect to that look back, discussion with those 5 stakeholder groups? I mean, it's an obvious question, but hoping that there is. A lot of times the data and the quantitative side of everything doesn't quite tell the whole story. The qualitative work kind of fills in the blanks and just gives it, I think, a bit more perspective.
Certainly, yes. There will be, so I think there's kind of 2 ways in which we're going to be folding in that qualitative work, and some of that is just scraping all of the great qualitative work that's already been done to date in the past 10 years. There are many community engagement processes, community co-design processes, community surveys and things like that that get at some of that qualitative data. So they will be looking at that as well. And then also proposing ways to gather new qualitative feedback. But we, I think, anticipate that when we engage in the look ahead work, there'll be additional opportunities to pull in some of that qualitative experience measurement. And we'll be talking about that later in the meeting today.
That's great, thank you.
Member Norton.
Yes, so this is exciting to look back and admire what we've done, but also to create that new kind of adjusted vision for the future. The one thing I just want to make sure that we do, because of the way DMC is set up, the whole process, that at some point before it's announced to the world, that we get some input from the city council to make sure that we have not set a direction that they're concerned about. And so it sounds like the report will be done prior to the May meeting, and I would hope that there'll be an opportunity for some input from the council prior to that.
Yeah, just maybe a clarification. I'm looking at Patrick maybe as I say this. There are 2 parts, and we're going to talk about the going forward part next. This is a separate contract to do the backward-looking park. And so what you're raising is a very relevant and important question about the work that we are going to do going forward and the process that we use in the sense of engagement from various parties and the public. So maybe that's a good transition from our backward-looking report, Catherine, and maybe we can move forward then to the, there's one more question, Member Schubring?
Yes,
comment?
picking up on Member Williams' comments on the qualitative analysis, one of the pieces that would be interesting to see is, because DMC started 10 years ago, what is that narrative as far as how the community views DMC within this community? And I was actually thinking about this when Member Rybeck was talking about the legislative report. You know, what is it that other stakeholders like the legislature and others that participate with DMC, how has their view of DMC been consistent? How has it shifted over the course of the last 10 years? And how have we shifted the way we thought DMC would unfold, and to the point that we are now with our decade of service?
Thank you, Member Schubring. I do think that that is, both from Member Williams and Member Schubring, the qualitative as well as the quantitative is important. I'm not sure if that's in the scope of the contract right now with the current consultants. So I'm going to ask staff to reflect on that input and think about either with the backward-looking or the forward-looking or something outside of that process completely, how we capture the qualitative evolution of the view of the community and the work of the DMCC, and give us some suggestions about how best to address that. And with that, let's move on to the forward-looking.
didn't know if
Is
the
there
mayor
another
had
comment?
No, I just didn't know if we needed to move this resolution.
No, it's at the end of this discussion.
Okay, great.
So let's move forward
Thank
to
you.
the plan update discussion.
So, thank you very much. So, the look forward is what we want to talk about now, this DMC plan update. And Cindy Steinhauser has joined us as well, who has been our partner in developing this methodology. And I'm going to ask Catherine and to lead this and engage Cindy as appropriate. What we want to do today is describe how we're approaching, how we think we should approach the update, which is a required update by the state law and a good thing to do anyway, and our criteria that we're using to select a consulting team and then give us authorization to proceed in contracting with a consulting team to support this process. Catherine, I'll let you pick it up from here, but I may interject in a moment as well.
Certainly. Yes, so now turning to that visioning and that sort of look ahead portion of the update. So this has been a process that we commenced last year in terms of ideation and sort of trying to frame an approach in partnership with our city partners. And so Deputy City Administrator Cindy Steinhauser, Assistant City Administrator Ryan Yetzer, and Community Development Director Irene Woodward have been the key leadership on the city side that has partnered with DMC staff in developing this approach and methodology that will both meet the legislative requirements and we believe also create this amazing moment to re-articulate the vision of the DMC, to reflect what we know now that we may not have known when this plan was enacted. So the first step is obviously those legislative requirements, which we just had up. But I think what's most critical to emphasize here is what we have really been doing as a whole community is a tremendous amount of continuous and ongoing planning work. And so the DMC foundational documents have served as this guiding 20-year plan. When we did the first 5-year update, which you can see at the top of the diagram there, that update already had to incorporate numerous regional and city strategies, small area plans, updated market studies that had happened even in the short first 5 years of the DMC. And now that we are at this 10-year point, there is even more amazing work that has come out of the community that is going to be captured in this update and reflected. Some of those include the Vision 2050 Mayor's Plan, the UDC, is a really landmark land use plan that has come out, UMR's plan, obviously Mayo's update and their both forward and bound, and then several small area plans that are within the DMC boundaries. So that's just a selection of some of the plans. So really this scope is centered around this idea of first reviewing all of that great work, synthesizing and playing back that work to the community, to the stakeholders, to the public, to ensure that all of that work is still valid, relevant, understood, shared. And then the role of this consultant team would be to help us re-articulate that shared and actionable vision of the DMC that's telling the story of the transformation that is happening. And then out of that shared vision, there ultimately some potential projects are identified, and I think critically an articulated framework for viability for assessing projects going forward that centers people in place and really ties back to that shared vision. So this is the approach that we are proposing we bring forward in this update. So it's not a new plan. It is a sort of synthesis and rearticulation that builds upon all of the work that has already been happening and continues to happen in close partnership with the city. Cindy, I don't know if you had anything to add there.
No, if I might just step in, and as Catherine indicated, it absolutely has been a partnership. DMC has taken the lead, but the city has walked alongside that, not only in our involvement with Ryan, Irene, and myself, but in the data that we have provided to the consultants. We have been part on this journey with our DMC partners in terms of identifying the criteria for data to include in the RFQ, selection of the RFQ process, helping inform the look forward component of it, and also in the selection of the consultants at every step along the way, and continuing to identify the data sources that we need to provide both to the consultant and to DMC to make this a very robust process. So we are definitely walking alongside DMC in this process and appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you, Cindy. And then building upon that, the consultant criteria for evaluation. So an RFQ was issued. There were numerous great applications, qualified teams, many qualified teams. The joint city DMC team has narrowed down that list to a short list to work with to get full proposals. So what are we proposing today is to use these criteria of track record, the team composition, their commitment to community engagement and communication, and their demonstrated creative or innovative approaches to this type of work. And I think we have some great options in front of us, and so that brings us to a timeline to sort of say where we are today. And so this is the time to ensure that we are being thorough in our action plan and scope, because the community engagement co-design process will commence ideally at the beginning of March to get us to the legislatively required schedule to adopt the plan by the end of 2025. So what we're requesting today is for board authorization to proceed with this approach to the 2025 update, that these criteria seem valid, and authorizing us to move forward to contract.
Thank you, Catherine and Cindy and Patrick. The resolution is on page 75 of your packet. I want to just make a couple of comments. I'm interested in the possibility of board input into that process at either the May meeting or a near subsequent meeting to that. And I think in discussion with Patrick, there are some opportunities for the board as well to think about how to inform this work before we actually get the result of the consultant and public input process. And there's a question of timing. I think we've got 10 years under our belt and kind of another 10 years before us. But is it more likely to advance our goals if there is some intensity about investment opportunities in the next of those 5 years versus a more metered and perhaps more reactive investment over another decade. And I don't know what the right or wrong answer is. I mean, it's an ability to have confidence about the merit of the strategic opportunity versus thinking about waiting until a partner comes forward and asks us to participate in investment. I think some of this is dependent on the time frame of the actual visual and practical realization of the Mayo investment. Oftentimes, you need that catalytic investment to actually be visible in a community for it to really gather the attention of others to present creative and innovative ideas about private investment in the community. So I think there's a big question about how are our desired outcomes best advanced as we think about the potentially the priming the pump opportunity on our behalf, and that will require some real conversations about the level of confidence about a strategic investment and in what nature and what geography of what type and with what kind of partnership opportunities or requirements. So I just wanted to put that comment forward, and Patrick, it looks like you might have a comment that you want to offer.
Well, absolutely, and I just want to underscore that the intent behind this is to not create a new plan or somebody else's plan. This is really to give visibility to disparate, high-quality plans that have not necessarily come together in a way that is coherent and we all understand the opportunities in front of us. So I think what we would intend to bring back to you in May and likely for the joint session would be that first phase of the work that Catherine described, which is illuminating and distilling and giving visibility to all of these key plans and the key elements associated with that. And perhaps the best of it will be to show where there is consistency across plans or threads across them that clearly rise to a level that reflect the voice of the community, if you will. Because it shows up in this waterfront plan, it shows up in the mayor's 2050 vision work, it shows up in the Bold Forward plan. I mean, things that rise to the top that are clearly sort of singular in their value proposition for the community.
Thank you, that's helpful, and it won't stop me from making this next comment as well. I think perhaps as part of that reflective and comparative process, one of the things that would be helpful is, as we reflect on the last 10 years and our aspirations for the next 10, are there things that are still missing that would assist us? And I'm struck, for example, by many communities have nonprofit organizations that can receive funds and acquire and hold properties until there's a development opportunity available. And is there an opportunity to think about gaps in our development spectrum that would actually help us achieve the goals for the next 10 years? And might that be something that we need to coalesce around and help put some energy into resolving? So I think there'll be a great opportunity for both when we receive the first phase of the work, the backward looking, and as we go through this process about public engagement and distilling and clarifying our goals for the next 10 years. Let's just keep a couple of those in mind. And then the very last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to require myself to move on. One of the great opportunities is about this multi-billion-dollar investment in Mayo. It's why we're all here. It's what we want to help facilitate, help move forward, and help realize. I just continue to hope that there is a physical design that facilitates the flow of visitors and patients and staff between what I'm going to call the campus and the downtown, because I think our goal is to animate and enliven the downtown, and retail follows traffic. So if it's easy for people to move into those surrounding commercial, retail, hospitality spaces, that will make it easier and more likely for people to want to invest their own funds in a business or a restaurant or a hotel. And so you know, having been affiliated with campus planning during my years at the University of Minnesota, it is a delicate balance about meeting the objectives of the team of people that will work inside the building, creating a safe and protective space for those who use the building and move between the buildings of your campus, and having it be porous and open to the surrounding community. I trust that they will balance those interests well, but I am hopeful that we really see in a very concrete way that the assets that we're trying to invest in and create will be able to be fully used by those that visit that fine facility as we move forward. All right, enough of that, enough of me. Let's move on to approving the resolution. Oh, Madam, or excuse me, Member Ryback?
Yeah, I've been a doctor.
Doctor,
Madam,
I'm
so
sorry.
This is going to be quite a bit. Thank you, Madam
Apparently
Chair.
other people have comments.
Yeah, first, can I ask just a simple question of, do I understand this right, that you're going to hire one firm for the look back, and then there's going to be another group doing the look forward?
That is correct. The look back firm has been engaged. It's a much smaller contract. This is the look forward that we're discussing today, and they are not overlapping teams. I would say the look forward is more teams typically led by design and planning, whereas the look back is more a economist-led approach.
Can I make a suggestion that there be more consideration to the continuity between those two teams, and especially with the connective tissue of community engagement? And I think this goes to that whole point about how we do qualitative or anecdotal information. Rightfully, we want to get what two of our members already said is important, which is just the impressions, those more abstract anecdotal impressions of the community. But if what we do with them is to receive them without a two-way dialogue about what to do next, it's a problem. So I can read in a report, somebody thought we didn't do this or that. But if you think about it, all of that criteria was set up in a series of really intense community engagement meetings at the very beginning. And what I'm really sort of hungry for is some place in the middle between what that was in the past and the future, where we re-engage the community in some of that and really had more of a conversation about, hey, here's what we think got done, hey, here's what the impression of it is. Example, when I remember in one of those engagement meetings, we were talking about all sorts of things, waterfront and Discovery Squares and all of that, but somebody said, one of the constituencies you're not thinking about are people who come with patients. And they've got a ton of time on their hands, they're needing to support this other person, but who's supporting them? There's all this trauma they're dealing with. And it was just this really interesting, seemingly random conversation. But when you look up at the criteria that was on the board there, of those constituencies, one of those is the companion experience. That's not a random dot that's put on that. That tracks all the way back to specific comment that an individual made at that first time. So they made this plan better by having that comment. So what I'm looking for is a way to build that track through, not just past and present, but the middle is where we, I think, can really use engagement. And I think that requires more continuity between these two teams. So it's just sort of a broad thought, but just sit on that for a minute.
Yes, I appreciate those comments. We had anticipated that there would certainly be in dialogue with each other as the sort of one team is winding down their work, the other is taking off. And so we'll work to think about other ways where we can enhance that.
Right.
Madam Chair,
Member Williams,
do we have time for questions after motions, or?
now would be the time to do it.
Okay,
Yes,
great,
let's-
thanks.
Let's go ahead and get that.
I appreciate it, and very much, one, I'm happy to see the language around synthesize and synthesis of existing plans. That makes a lot of sense to me. Secondly, the point that Dr. Ryback was making around, just again, qualitative, connecting these two, both the look back and the look forward, I also agree is really important, and engagement. I think we have two big opportunities here. One is around this narrative. What's the narrative of the last, decade and what's the narrative going forward. And this is an opportunity actually to further cement buy-in. And so, to me, the qualitative work really is as important. You mentioned, and again, I know you all know this and believe this, you mentioned economists, planners, and designers. And I was, well, where are the humans, right? As a,
Wait a minute, no. As someone with a master's in
I
applied
know.
economics, I'd like to think there's a
I
humanness here.
retract my statement. But anyways, again, just that qualitative engagement process I do think is important, both for kind of creating more buy-in, looking forward, as well as getting kind of better sense of where are we at this point. The other opportunity I think we have is to actually accelerate. And Chair Wheelock, you mentioned, you know, the framework for action, I think is what it was called, the framework for viability. How do we translate that into what can we accelerate even going forward and not just, you know, step back and wait for projects to come for us. So I just think that's an opportunity that's obvious that I wanted to point out. And then just a third piece around the language, the criteria around community engagement and communications. As I looked in the information there, I just want to experience working in diverse communities. Equity, I think we need to keep, again, that for me, at least, that's what that's about. And the times that I've come down here and just spent times outside of the DMC meeting with diverse communities here in the Rochester area, folks are thirsty to stay engaged, to stay connected, and so that consultant having experience working in diverse communities and familiarity, I think, is important. So it's just a bit of an amendment to that criteria, and I know that's probably assumed within that already, but just wanted to state it out loud.
And I would just summarize this conversation by saying we entrust staff to take this feedback and discern what fits into this work plan for these two items and what is better addressed in some other method and methodology. We're hoping, obviously, you can incorporate much of this feedback in the work that is either still underway or about to begin. And I think in summary, let's just not forget the power of storytelling to shape and influence people's perspectives about our successes and our ambition and our struggles. So with that, I'm going to ask for a motion on the resolution on page 75.
So moved?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Tammy, would you call the roll?
Member Baker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Rybeck,
Aye.
Schubring,
Aye.
Tyne,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
and Williams.
Aye.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to move on to item number B, the Second Street Southwest Public Realm Enhancement, which is on, for the members, on page 99 of your book.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. Really pleased to bring this discussion forward today. Again, asking Catherine and Cindy to lead this presentation, but before I give them the floor, I will just say the next two items that we are going to be talking about are really, I think, pursuant to the point you were making earlier, Chair Wheelock, about the role of DMC in supporting public infrastructure as a strategy to see private investment happen. And so in both of these cases, and we'll focus first on the Second Street public realm, they really are about how do we use the public infrastructure tool that is DMC to stimulate and prompt and be a catalyst for private investment. And so your action today is a request. What we're requesting of you, the city is requesting of you, is action around the public realm. I think you will see the role it will play in stimulating and catalyzing private investment. So with that, and specifically, I want to just mention that this will include a housing development associated with it. Not on this agenda and not in discussion today is a housing development that is making a lot of headway across the street, 350 unit private development with affordable housing preservation associated with that. And this, the West Transit Village, at least a 90-unit affordable senior housing. So as it relates to understanding the role we're playing in catalyzing housing in Rochester. I think these are 3 examples that I just wanted to give visibility to, so.
Great, thank you. So today's request is coming from the City of Rochester, seeking authorization of $2.3 million in funding for land acquisition and associated park infrastructure improvements along the 2nd Street corridor. So this is a concept that has been in planning at least since 2009, if not prior to that. This is an image from a neighborhood plan of the 2nd Street corridor from 2009. There are super blocks of, great length along this corridor, and so for quite some time, the opportunity to split up those blocks by using public realm connections to weave through the neighborhood has been a neighborhood priority. And this project is along that 2nd Street BRT corridor, adjacent and enveloped by the Kutsky Park neighborhood. So the opportunity to do these mid-block connections, of course, is contingent upon having a partnership with a landowner that is willing to work together to enable this sort of thing to happen. And so that's what we have here. I know it's a bit small, but you can see that black arrow is the piece of public realm connection that we're talking about today. The blue footprint is the Mayo Bound, and the red dots are the BRT stations on either side of this. So you can see this kind of super block connection opportunity is roughly right in the middle between those 2 spots. So at this point, I will hand it over to Deputy City Administrator Cindy Steinhauser to walk us through.
Great, thank you, Catherine. As she indicated, this is a city request of just over 2.3 million. About 1.4 million is dedicated to property acquisition, and that's based on market comps and appraised land value. The cost to do the public improvements is just over 900,000. In our negotiations with Gerard, as the developer, we will maintain ownership of the land, but they will build it and they will maintain it for as long as the life of the apartment building. That obligation will carry forward should there even be a sale of the property at some point in the future. The project is a really amazing project. I think the public comment earlier really captures the heart of what we're trying to do here when you hear what the neighbors are saying about what they want to see in this space. It is an important mid-block connection on what we currently call a super block. It provides that important connection, connectability of a walkshed to multiple BRT stations. It's this high amenity gathering space, and Chair Weedluck, I'm reflecting on a comment you said earlier, the porous movement of people, of buildings and land, and I think there isn't a better project to reflect something like this in a neighborhood-based kind of project. But also want to think about the economic side of this story, and so the development would include retail, particularly cafe and other food services that we would require be located on the first floor adjacent to this space, so we create that synergy and energy of people and retail, commerce, and public realm. It is a really phenomenal project. What we're looking at is 133 market rate units with no financial assistance involved in the housing component of it. This public realm piece is really critical for this project to get off of the ground. And so, again, when we think about the building and maintenance obligations, the retail obligations, all of that will be reflected in the development agreement that we work with through the developer. There's also a great affordable component here in terms of a partnership with First Homes of 4 affordable condo units. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Catherine regarding source of funds and detail.
Great, thank you so much. So this project would be using funds that have been sourced in the annual CIP process as the strategic development line item. The purpose of that fund is to proactively support and catalyze development contiguous to infrastructure investments. So this summarizes the prior approved uses from that pool, and then pending today's action, the remaining balance you can see there. And so this is the request at the highest level summary of the land acquisition, both for the public realm and underlying the partnership with First Homes in a land banked sort of scenario there to maintain that in perpetuity at affordable levels. And that's the request for action. Thank you.
Can we start maybe by having a resolution, a motion to put the resolution on the table, and then we'll
So
have
moved.
discussion? Been moved? Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Yes, please.
Member Norton?
Thank you. I'm thrilled with the public comment today. One of my concerns had been that since 2009, we've been talking about it, but the turnover on that block since 2009 is substantial, and I was worried that we were going to be doing something to the neighborhood rather than with them. This assurance eases my mind as a person who gets the calls when people get upset. This will certainly help with that. The project looks stunning, and I'm really excited to see the activation and the requirements, and really look forward to this. So thank you for listening to my concerns about public engagement. Thank you, Andy, for coming forward and sharing the thoughts of the neighborhood. That's very, very helpful. Appreciate it. I'm excited.
Member Tyne, and then Member Schubring.
Okay. I gotta word this carefully, because I'm not opposed to the project. I'm questioning whether it's appropriate use of funds to incentivize market rate housing. Now, when I read this on here, we're saying we're not using these funds towards market rate housing, but then when it's presented to us, it's incentivizing market rate housing. And 2.37 is a significant amount of money, $2.37 million. If we're going to put this down as incentivizing market rate housing, then we're going to get a flood of requests for market rate housing subsidies. And we have a finite amount of funds that we need to be good stewards of. We're halfway through our project. I don't know, we're halfway through our funds, but we got some big asks, I'm sure, coming down the road. So we gotta weigh these things. If we remove the talk about incentivizing market rate housing, then the question is $2.3 million an appropriate amount of funds to have a very nice looking park walkway? I don't know, I don't build park walkways, so I don't know what they're worth, but I think that's the question that we need to be asking is, well, two questions. Is this an appropriate amount of funding for a walkway, a very nice looking walkway? And two, do we want to be seen as subsidizing market rate housing? So I have concerns, but I'm willing to listen to conversations.
I'll see first if staff have any response to that, and then I'll offer a comment as well. Or maybe I'll start with my comment. I think those are valid concerns. I do feel like this is one of those opportunities where we're able to leverage private investment, and I don't see this as an investment in market rate housing. I think it is a fortunate opportunity for us to have a result of an investment in that area by a developer, but the public access is really what I'm focused on, and I'm influenced by my own neighborhood where I live in St. Paul, where there is a very, very long block. I have a different kind of concept in my head when I think of super blocks, so I don't use that term, but it's the equivalent of probably about 4 blocks, and there is probably through a vacation of what would otherwise be a through street, there is a sidewalk that passes through, and it is a huge amenity for the neighborhood to be able to connect one side of that very long block with the other, and the commercial opportunities on the other side, the neighborhood on the other side, and it is highly used, not so attractive. I can't say that it would have cost what this is going to cost, but it's publicly maintained as well. And I am really amazed about the commitment of the adjacent property owners to take on the responsibility of maintenance for this public right-of-way, and think that that's a consideration about the upfront public investment that's required in return for that annual management responsibility. So I'm not sure if Patrick or Catherine or Cindy have any additional comments to address Member Tyne's concerns.
Thank you, and Commissioner Tyne, I appreciate the question and the nuance here. Let me describe how we think about approaching a public realm question that comes before us. I think we first start with trying to understand, is it consistent with prior plans? Is it consistent with the DMC plan? So you think about Soldiers Field and the role we played. Our first hurdle was, is that a plan that we had in mind? Is that something we already had in mind? And then we tried to understand, if so, did we have confidence in how it would be built and how it would be designed? And then we judged out, are we confident in how it would be maintained and operated? So that and over time, I think we've learned that we need to create these conditions to ensure that our public infrastructure funds are used for the right purpose and will be maintained and managed over time. So that is why we keep referring to the 2009 Kutzke plan, only because that's where it began. And I think Andy was living in the neighborhood. He was a neighborhood member at the time, so that's why you see his passion about seeing this through. And I will point out that Mr. Gerard is in the room as well, who is the developer. So it is born out of the fact that it exists in a community plan that began as early as 2009, predating DMC, but consistent with, I think, DMC's objectives to create great public space associated with the development of BRT and of Bold Forward Unbound and the enhancement of the Kutzke neighborhood. And then we have confidence that it will be well-designed and built out and well-maintained because of the relationship, the agreement that is being established, giving the developer being responsible for that ongoing maintenance. It is a benefit that immediately upon that public realm investment, a 130 unit market rate apartment will be built. It is not coincidental, but it's an amazing opportunity that contemporaneous to our investment, we will see a $50 million investment happen immediately adjacent. And so it is a nuance to try to explain the difference, and I do think it does create some confusion, and we try our best to distinguish the difference. And I would say one last thing that's a little bit in the background that isn't given a lot of visibility is that there is a 4-unit affordable for-sale condo that is going to be built by by the developer, supported by First Homes and the Community Land Trust, that will be in perpetuity affordable ownership opportunity, and really a prototype for advancing ownership opportunities, affordable ownership opportunities. And so while it's difficult and our job oftentimes is very nuanced, that is, I think, a legitimate differentiator between somebody approaching us for money to put into their private market rate housing development. And I would just say, and I appreciate the question because it gives us the opportunity, I think, to better describe and distinguish the difference. So those are the ways that we have evaluated this, and later in I'll leave it at that. Those are the ways that we have evaluated this. Oh, and I would also say, based on the cost of other public improvements that we have supported, both along BRT that are coming forward and Discovery Walk, this is a bargain from a delivery of public space. There's not much utility work going on underneath, so I mean, there's part of it that it's less expensive because there's not a lot of underground utility work necessary, but sort of square foot by square foot, this is a bargain.
Member Schubring and then Member Rybeck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, first, I did want to commend Member Tyne for bringing transparency to your concerns. I think that's part of what we should be doing as a public body and then explaining it, so I appreciate that. What I did want to do was echo what Mayor Norton said as far as the Kutzke neighborhood. I'm very familiar with the Kutzke neighborhood. Andy knows that he's seen me at many of those meetings, and this neighborhood really has suffered a lot from its very close proximity to the Mayo campus, whether it's construction or bus shuttles, parking. And so this really opportunity to really give them a breather in that, I think is, as you could hear in the letter, is really a something that will be used and special for that neighborhood. One question that I do have is on the timing of this. This neighborhood will continue to see some challenges during the next 5 to 7 year construction period for BRT and parts of the Bold Forward Unbound program. What's the anticipated opening of this park space?
Yes, thank you, Member Schubring. It's my understanding they hope to break ground in the fall, and then I believe completion would be in late 2026. Is that correct? Spring 27. So breaking ground by this fall.
Thank you.
Member Rybeck.
I found this a somewhat complicated decision because I think, like Mayor Tyne, I had a pretty tight rein on how much we give to subsidies and developments. And a few years ago, I took a pretty controversial vote here by saying no to a project just a few blocks west of here. So I definitely get that point. I'm going to support this for a few other reasons. One of which is it's over the next few years, we're going to need a really deep partnership with this neighborhood. And I know this neighborhood pretty well. My in-laws lived on Center Street and went to a lot of events. My wife, this was her route to elementary school, and we're constantly going through there. The unique part of this is something that a doctor trying to decide whether to work at the Cleveland Clinic or not would say, wow, I can work in a community where right next to the incredible world-class hospital, or whatever you're going to call that thing, is this amazing neighborhood. But it's a very, very sensitive seam that we need to be very, very mindful of. And I find this to be extremely creative, and it's really nice to hear the neighborhood embraces it, because these sorts of seemingly small things are going to be really, really big. And I think it's a really good example for Mayo to be watching as you look at, it's not only designing Unbound, but it's designing that seam around Unbound so that it is seen as something that is a good transition from one to the other. So I think that, while small, I agree, it's a really big step. And I like the fact that the developer is going to maintain that, and we'll certainly remind you of that ongoing. And I do like the affordable unit, and the land trust, I think, is a really good model for us to be holding up, because right now we're looking at significant escalation of property values, and the idea of using a land trust to build in sustainable affordability is, I think, a model we should be continuing to do. So I'm going to support it for those reasons, and I really like the fact that there's a partnership between you guys are sitting together, and I hope, Dr. Otley, you're sitting together with the neighbors too and others, because this is going to be really important over these next few years.
Thank you. We have a resolution that's on the floor. Is there any further discussion, comments? Seeing none, Tammy, will you take the roll?
Yes, Baker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Rybeck,
Aye.
Schubring,
Aye.
Tyne,
I'm going to support this aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
and Williams.
Aye.
Thank you, staff. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a resolution and discussion authorizing the establishment of tax increment financing district to support the development of the West Transit Village. Let's start by getting the resolution on the table. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved?
Second?
Second, and now we'll have the discussion.
Thank you. This is a project you have been walking with us over many years, and we are at a next step, one that we predicted and socialized with you at the last meeting, as we are continuing to advance the West Transit Village development. Catherine?
Great, thank you. So as a reminder, you have seen this kind of master plan, public-private partnership that combines both the transit infrastructure with the Mayo parking resource and private development of both affordable and market rate housing. So this is the overall vision for the site that also connects to the existing trail infrastructure as well. And so what we're here before you today is actually for the next step in the process, which is to establish the TIF district here. And so well, I guess here's the right bullets for you. This is where we are in the long arc of this project. We've got the FTA funding, the RFP responses are being evaluated. The city council has approved the development agreement between the city and Mayo Clinic, and design continues to progress on all of these site components.
It's easy to be very casual in walking through those bullets. Every one of those was a heavy lift, and so.
Yeah, thank you. And so the city is ready to establish the TIF district. Cindy and her team have been working in close partnership on this one as well. Mayo is looking to commence the construction of this parking deck this spring. So the TIF district would need to be established prior to any of that commencing in order to capture any increment off of the parking deck that would be generated. So while we are still in the process of determining all of the site infrastructural needs, those will be separate decisions that would come before the board and city council subsequent to this. So today, it is really just the review and authorization to establish the TIF district using the DMC TIF designation, but not counting against the DMC, the city's DMC contribution. I don't know if you have anything to add, Cindy?
Before you do, Cindy, I would just say, the city has a right to establish TIF districts as they wish. However, in this case, because the site does not meet the conditions for standard tax increment financing, because it's no longer a blighted site, it does require using the tool that was created by the DMC legislation that allowed for other conditions to trigger or to establish a TIF district. And so we are simply authorizing the city to use that tool for this purpose, with future consideration by this board for the use of those proceeds.
Madam Chair.
Let me just check. Cindy, did you want to add anything
No,
to that?
Patrick added what I was going to,
Okay.
the additional clarification.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to underscore what Patrick just said. The state gave Rochester tools that no other city had. As mayor of Minneapolis, I would have salivated to be able to use these tools, but no other city can. And so this is an example of the state saying, this is an extraordinarily unique opportunity. So just this project funding that we're talking about couldn't happen in any other city in the state, and I'm glad we have it in Rochester.
Any other comments by staff on this item? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion or question by the members?
I have a question, and it's primarily to our city administrative staff. Can you, and maybe Patrick, you can also, can you tease out a little bit more the separation between the DMC TIF district and Rochester's, the city of Rochester? And what I'm hearing is that it's separate. We're going here with the DMC TIF, and it really isn't a commitment from the city. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if that's a question for Tammy, our legal counsel, or for Cindy at the city, but I'm looking to Cindy first.
Sure. So I'll attempt to answer it, and then the smart legal people can correct me where maybe misspoke. So just to go back to some comments that Patrick made, this area does not meet the traditional TIF definition, right? It's an empty surface parking lot. So there's no blight test. That's the criteria for a city's standard TIF. So that's where the DMC TIF legislation comes into play. This does, and so what we're not counting against is our $128 million match ask of DMC funding. We are on track to meet those obligations without needing to include this project as part of that $128 million TIF obligation. Should you approve this would advance to the city council for establishment, and it would roll onto our tax rolls as a TIF district that we would manage until the TIF obligations have been met.
So if I can summarize this, and then I'm going to look at both you and Tammy. it is in all aspects, just like any other city TIF district, except they need to lean on our statutory authority about the rationale for establishing a TIF district. In all other ways, it will look and act like a city TIF district. Is that correct?
That is an excellent summary, yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, economist, Wheelock, and attorney.
Member Norton?
Yeah, that's a follow-up question to that. So, so this will be, if it passes a TIF district, the projects that go on it, if approved, can they go against the 128 if the city or DMC board chose or not?
That is actually a question I would have to refer back to legal counsel on, and we can.
Can you repeat that question?
Well, one of the levers that we have for the $128 million obligation of the city is TIF. Once this is established as a TIF district, can a project for, say, low-income housing that would go out there, and if TIF is used, can that count toward our 128 or not?
We'd have to take a look at that. Because this is being established outside of the traditional TIF authority using the DMCC, I'd have to take a look at whether or not you could allocate that.
And I think we're fine leading toward that 128 already, but I just wondered if that, an apartment complex or whatever could count. So just a question.
And then just a emphasis on that final bullet of the previous slide about the use of funds will come back to the city council and the DMC.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, Tammy, would you take the roll?
Yes, Baker.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Norton.
Aye.
Rybeck.
Aye.
Schubring.
Aye.
Tyne.
Aye.
Wheelock.
Aye.
And Williams.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution passes. We'll next move to item number D, the Downtown Historic District Infrastructure Request, which is on page 109 for our members. And this time I'll let staff actually do the presentation before I get a motion to put the resolution on the table.
Thank you. Cindy, don't leave. Inviting Jamie Rothy from our team to join for this presentation. And Cindy, Jamie, as you sit down, I will give you the clicker.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about the next project that's before you for consideration. Just a quick reminder, we wanted to remind you that we were, back in Q2 of 2024, we brought forward this framework that's in front of you. This was based on, again, community feedback around the 4 themes of where our community saw the best potential use of these dollars. And then we used past data to help us understand where we might start to see prioritization of these dollars. So we just like to keep this in front of you as we continue to move forward on this opportunities. We also want to remind you of the 4 projects that have been approved so far. They all follow the same process. They're first reviewed by DMC and city staff. Then they go to the DMC EDA board, here to the DMCC board, and then to city council. The most recent project, the Merrill project, did have some additional discussion at the city council level, but was ultimately supported by city council. So the project before you today that's looking for some requested action is 224 First Avenue Southwest, also known as Old City Hall. What their application includes is a request of $22,500 of their funding request from DMC, and this is to go towards electrical code upgrades within the building. If approved, we just like to keep this in front of you as well so you understand what has been spent out of the $5 million budget. So if approved today, we would have invested just over $800,000. And so with that, I'll open it up for discussion. Or Patrick, any other comments that you may have?
Madam Chair?
Maybe just one thing. I'm sorry, if I could just say one thing. Jamie and I were talking before we came into this presentation, and we are showing this drawdown against the budget that you had authorized. We ought to be showing you the amount of private investment that is occurring as well. So at least $815,000 or more of private investment associated with this is occurring at the same time.
Thank you. Member Williams?
Yeah, I'm supportive of this project. I'm curious, actually, more broadly, just about kind of the uptake on this project, I see the 6 submitted intake forms, 1 funding application ready for consideration. Do you feel like we're getting good uptake? Are folks interested in the district? 5 million is a wonderful figure to have there. I'm just not sure how quickly this feels like it's moving. And we've only been, what, 6 months
Correct.
into it?
Yeah, the city and DMC staff work together on a weekly basis to review applications. We also just implemented a second round of an outreach and communication strategy where property owners and tenants received mailers about the funding opportunities, all 3 of them, both DMC and city. And then we're also meeting, going around another round one-on-one again with tenants to make sure that they're aware. And just knowing that this is a new funding tool, we're trying to spend a lot of time with each of them to understand the opportunities within each of those. So we're really happy with the response so far and the wide range of types of projects that these property owners and tenants are considering.
Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity.
Member Schubring and then Member Norton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is related to Member Williams' question. It seems to be a very popular program. I'm excited that there's a lot of interest in it. What kind of work do you do on the applications to vet the applications that come in? Because I'm sensing that there may be a time when they're going to be more competitive as they come in. So is there a prioritization process that you're anticipating that you're going to need to do before you bring them to the board here?
You know, we're not, go ahead if you want like to, and I can finish.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. I would say, I think it's fair to say that it is a first come, first served basis application, but our team, working in partnership with DMC, we have conversations with the applicant, trying to understand what it is they want to achieve, right? Understand what does their pro forma look like, what's the readiness test in terms of their ability to lift the project off of the ground, right? How does it meet the intent and the parameters set up in the program, or does it need some additional coaching? So I think that there's a really strong vetting process that involves, again, not only Jamie, but also multiple members of city team from across departments that have that background in development, have that background in historic preservation, and all of them come to the table, and we do a fair amount of vetting in terms of readiness and alignment with the intent, as we understand it, of the program. I don't know, Jamie, if you want to add to that.
I would just add, I want to be clear, there has been an enthusiastic response. After a lot of perhaps 10 years of community discussion about establishing or not a historic district, after lots of discussion about DMC and what it's going to do with historic buildings, and after ultimately the city council landing on the decision to establish a historic district, there has been enthusiastic response to this tool and other tools that the city have created. And we're seeing it in these now 5 that have come forward, the 6 in the pipeline. And I think the energy that's coming out of this, recognizing that it is a reflection of our goal to preserve and support the historic fabric while we see this incredible transformation occurring. And I think I think you as a board should feel that this work has been very well received and very much appreciated. So I just want to acknowledge that, and you all had a decision to make, and it's been very well received.
Member Schubring has a follow-up, and then Member Norton.
Yeah, and just to your point, Patrick, I see that enthusiasm, and so I'm going to just dig in a little bit more. What my concern is that I'm looking at the full inventory of the properties in the historic district, and do we have a sense of those properties that are most in need of these dollars? My worry is that we're getting a lot of projects that are coming across our desk, but that those that need it most may lose out because they're not there yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you. So we did try to model out, and this slide was a slide we used to try to model out what we might expect, and this was based on months of conversation with the property owners to understand what their property challenges were. And as we modeled it out and tried to rationalize what amount would we come to you for, where we landed on 5 million, was based on this. And I suppose, you know, once we have a year under our belt, we'll really test out, did we predict right, and what are we seeing? There are 28 properties in the district, and it's a bit like the project we talked about earlier with Gerard, and that he is prepared to make this land available to us. We can only invest in these when the property owner is ready to invest as well. So we have to be a little bit patient. There are some tools the city created to help with pre-engineering and pre-design to support property owners to be thinking about and envisioning, imagining what they could be doing with their property. Because, you know, if you've owned it for a long time and you see it as one thing, you might need a little help to think, imagine what it could be or how it worked. And so I think the other thing we're seeing is that as projects happen and move along, it is spurring ideas from other property owners. So, so I think there's, we may come back to you and say, this has been so successful, we need another version of it. And wouldn't that be a welcome conversation?
Thank you.
Member Norton and then Member Ryback.
Yeah, so a lot has happened since our last meeting, so I want to address my action as a member of this board and also responsible for contracts at the city level and use my veto authority on something. So I do want to just talk about that here because I am very supportive of this project. I think there's a difference between upgrading electrical in a project that already has apartments and bringing it up to its historic and dealing with those things that take something from its historic, maintaining the historic part of it, but making it modern on the inside so that it works and functions. I think the program that we have here is absolutely tied to that. What I was concerned about was the adaptive reuse project, which created a new apartment, which was actually a money-making venture for the individual that now owns and will make profit off that building for years to come. And I saw, and I continue to see, the city's addition, which is the revolving loan, no interest revolving loan program, which specifically states that's for adaptive reuse as the best place for those types of investments. And so when we approved last time the projects, I did not understand that we were not going to be using the adaptive reuse for an adaptive reuse project. So the city council chose to move ahead with the project. That's perfectly fine. I just wanted to be really clear here that I saw the I don't know what we call it, pre-planning money that we have. Pre-design money, thank you. And the revolving loan fund for a certain purpose, and this funds that we're talking about today as a different purpose. That was my understanding of the project going in. It is my preference that we continue to do that because, as has been pointed out, we have 28 buildings that can apply for this. We want to make sure we stretch it as much and as best we can to get out of it what we want, which is preserving these beautiful buildings that we have in this community. So I just wanted to be clear, it wasn't related to, do I agree that we spend the money? I agree that we do. I just want to make sure we're using the right source for the right projects, and I felt we had kind of, in my opinion, had gone off a little bit to a different source. So just wanted to make that clear because there might have been some confusion with the yes vote here and a no vote at the table.
Thank you, Member Norton, and again, I appreciate the transparency, and this is on a previous project, not the project that is up for action today.
Which I do support wholly.
Which you will support when given the chance, but I do think it's appropriate to have that as part of our public record, and I thank you for making those comments. Yeah. Member Ryback.
First up, Madam Chair, really want to thank the staff for really digging into this. I think it's consistent with the work you did during COVID, working with small businesses, and this is great. It was a concern from the very beginning, and I love it. There's a but, of course. I'm looking at this list, and it all makes sense. All of these are things that are needed to be done with historic buildings. What I don't see in here is something generally like paint up, fix up, facade improvement work. It may fit in some of these categories, but to me, what we're really trying to do is to create help for the individual buildings, but also have historic continuity of the district. And that means a real lead toward external work on that. And it may fit into some of these categories, and I'll ask you that. I also want to just sort of go back to the exciting popularity of this program and the idea of first come, first serve. I would really ask you to consider the idea of whether you should be doing a grant round, meaning a collection of actions together can create a whole, as opposed to individual actions of individual buildings that come in. So you may, as they come forward, get a better balance of what's a facade, what's a structural sort of thing. So that's just a suggestion on it.
I appreciate that, Member Ryback. I think that we're still in the nascent stage of this program, and I think as awareness and interest builds, that might be a very helpful suggestion. I'm also curious about the look and the feel of the downtown district, which includes the historic district, how that might relate to our discussions about heart of the city and the public infrastructure. So I'm not sure if staff want to make any comment now, or if you want to wait until we maybe incorporate that feedback into upcoming item on our agenda.
I would just say to comment on both Member Ryback and Member Williams. So yes, the facade and general enhancements we think is included in this, but we could make sure that's most explicit. Consider this a grant round. So when you ask about grant rounds, we do have these are quarterly. So we have a quarterly schedule, and the deadlines all drive towards action at a quarterly meeting. So in fact, that is our intent. And of course, we want to be timely with the pace of when a project wants to go forward. So that's why we keep it at a quarterly basis. And then the piece that you asked about, Chair Williams, the City Council, when establishing the historic district, including establishing some other tools, also set about and resource the idea of creating a plan for the public realm of the historic district to create a historic feel to the district outside of the individual buildings. And that work is just commencing as well. So that was contemplated by the city and supported by the city and is just underway.
Thank you. I think you meant Chair Wheelock and not Chair Williams.
I don't know.
Happy to turn this over.
He's calling him Mayor Tyne, Mayor Tyne, and Dr. Ryback, and I apologize.
All right, well, thank you. We know that because this is leveraging private investment, and there is oftentimes a difference about the level of interest from a tenant versus the property owner. This is an art, not a science, and so we look forward to the evolution of this. We know that private investment has to be under the consideration about what would the return on that investment be, and there's a lot of support and assistance and time for both kind of creative ideas and effective financial planning, so we'll look forward to that as we move forward. I don't think, I turn to Tammy as I say this, that I have a resolution.
You do not have a motion yet.
I do not have a motion.
I move
Is there a motion
approval.
for approval? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tammy, would you call the roll?
Member Baker,
Aye.
Campbell. Absent. Norton,
Aye.
Ryback,
Aye.
Schubring,
Aye.
Tyne,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
and Williams.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion
I don't know.
passes. We'll now move on to the Heart of the City infrastructure improvements, which is page 117 in the members' books.
Thank you. Again, I'll turn to Jamie and Cindy for this discussion.
Sounds good. Okay, just was going to check with our tech team. This projector's back up. So thanks again for having us back today to provide an update and discussion and looking for some action related to the Heart of the City Peace Plaza. Again, we've been working very closely with the City of Rochester, leadership and administration and staff as we worked through feedback and the process to address some of the community's comments regarding the plaza. So before you and in your packet, you'll see the resolution. We're asking that you consider amending the 2025 CIP budget up to $175,000 to support two things, some near-term improvements, and additional technical analysis, all again being informed by our community. So to kick off the discussion, I want to remind ourselves that we've seen and also have participated in a lot of great use and activation of the plaza over the past couple years. We've seen many events, daily activity, programming, both active and passive, encouraging new uses and new people to use the space. It has become a beloved new public realm that has all kinds of different uses, and we're really excited to see our community use it. And with that, even with extensive engagement and prototyping prior to even the design, we have received feedback that there are spaces within the Peace Plaza that do not feel as welcoming as others. And so with that information, we set upon a path where we began to do some pretty intense community interviews with people with different abilities. We wanted to take more than just the news and the articles and social media. We wanted to connect with different people with all kinds of different abilities to really begin to understand what the issues were within the space. And those themes are on you in front of you on the screen. It did validate some of the things that we were hearing, but it also brought up some new concerns as well. What I also want to recognize is these are things that we're not only considering for this project, but for all public realm projects, things that we should be aware as we continue to work with our different communities. And so with that, I would like to hand it over to the Deputy City Administrator, Cindy Steinhauser, and she'll talk more about how we would like to address what we've learned and how we might apply that within the public space.
Thank you, Jamie. So, as Jamie said, this feedback was really vital, not only for informing this, but future projects. And what we did was took this feedback and analysis and informed a goal around the work that we wanted to try and deliver. So, for us, it was about how do we prioritize clear, accessible walking areas, create that inclusive experience that Jamie was referring to, that we heard throughout the intensive engagement from members of the community. And we want to take a page from another really successful project, right? This is Discovery Walk. What we built and designed at Peace Plaza informed what we built and designed and built at Discovery Walk. And as you can see from this imagery, we incorporated not only pavers, but that smooth surface. So now we've got another really great project that can help inform the work that we want to go back and do to make sure that the experience is equitable for others on Peace Plaza. And so what that might look like is expanding smooth services. So currently the smooth travel portion of the plaza is somewhere between 10 and 12 feet. We're considering, does it warrant expanding that perhaps to 14 to 16 feet? And what other areas where we see high volume of users that would warrant some additional smooth pavers installed into the spaces? We also want to make sure that we're doing additional steps, right? So, in hearing that feedback, we clearly understood that signage, making it very clear where the walking portion areas of the Peace Plaza are. Making sure that as we evaluate the space, that we are continually looking at, are there pavers that need to be reset, or what do we need to do to achieve that smooth walking area? And part of what's tied to that is being a very robust daily monitoring. We are on there every single day with our partners at RDA and obviously DMC, but how can we enhance those daily maintenance protocols to make sure that the smooth areas do not have other things that serve as barriers for people to easily navigate, like additional signage or benches, or not additional signage, benches or other kinds of furniture that get in the way of people being able to traverse that smooth area. We want to make these modifications incrementally. We want to do them in small steps and then go back to the community, ask them, did this have the effect that we needed? Can we stop? Do we need to continue to do more? So there's this iterative evaluation process. At the same time, we want to make sure that throughout the summer that we do some additional engineering evaluations. We monitor the area, how are people using it, make sure we're monitoring that there isn't any additional settlement that might be a barrier in these smooth areas. We did some very intense corrective action last fall, and so that is the process that we are looking forward now through late summer, and always along the way, bringing back to the stakeholders and getting their input on what are we doing? Is it achieving what we heard you needed us to achieve so that you can have the kind of experience that others are having in this space?
Any further comments?
No, not this time, unless Patrick, you have more to add.
All right, there is a resolution in your packet. Let's start with a motion for approval.
So moved?
Second?
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Member Schubring?
Well, whenever you create new public spaces, public art, you're taking a risk. And with this project, I agree, it's a beautiful space, but it had some problems. And my concern with this is, why did it take us so long to address this? I see the article is last summer. The previous one I wasn't aware of in 2023. And this is the type of thing, we were talking about narrative earlier. This is the kind of narrative that really can start to go viral, because it's, a narrative of safety and with patients and visitors. So I think what we really need to do, and I'm speaking both in my role as a city council president and on the DMC board, that when things don't go right, we need to address it with community engagement right away. Because that narrative that Peace Plaza hasn't been safe has been buzzing through our community for over a year. And so I'm glad to see you here with this action item, and I will certainly support it. But we really, when things don't go the way we expected them to go, we need to be out there with community engagement more often than not.
Other comments? Member Norton?
Yep. I'll just say, long time coming, yes. Glad it's before us today. And I know there's a delicate balance between all the work that was done and the art involved, as well as making certain that patients and residents have a safe place to traverse to get to where they want to go. So I think it's a delicate balance. I appreciate that you're taking a balanced approach to it. I look forward to the modifications happening sooner rather than later, so that we can start measuring, is this working? Or is this answering the call that we've heard for the last year plus from the community? And I'll finish by saying, this area has been beautifully activated, and it is literally a joy every day to go down there and see the children and the people using the space in the way that we had hoped. At the same time, we're now going to address the concerns of those who didn't have as pleasant of experience. So I thank you. Thanks for bringing it forward.
Any further discussion, comments? All right, Tammy, would you call the roll?
Baker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Rybeck,
Aye?
Schubring,
Aye.
Tyne,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
and Williams.
Aye?
Okay, thank you for your work on those items. We're now going to turn to a discussion item, and I'm going to turn to Patrick and ask that he facilitate this. I think this is a conversation about how do we think about infrastructure, what are the goals, priorities that we have for this, and how do we think about doing this in partnership. So Patrick, I'll let you introduce your colleagues at the table and then turn it over to you.
Thank you. Really pleased to have this opportunity to organize and facilitate this discussion, and really want to have this opportunity to listen to you as a board as it relates to how we are approaching our thinking around the infrastructure associated with it, with and adjacent to Bold Forward Unbound. On my left, Doug Holton, whom I'm sure many of you know, Chair of Facilities. Do I have that right, Doug? Yes. Chair of Facilities for Mayo Clinic, a longtime partner of mine, as we have done many initiatives together, and Aaron Sexton, title?
Make it up.
Communications, sorry.
I'm our Senior Director of External Relations.
Sorry, thank you. And of course, Cindy Steinhauser, who you know. We really want to just simply lightly introduce this topic, facilitate or organize or participate in any discussion that you would like, but we really want to hear from you as we try to as we've been working together to develop a set of goals and guiding principles for the big decisions forthcoming regarding improvements associated with the Unbound project and the West Transit Village and BRT for that matter. But a lot of this discussion has been focused on the adjacency to Unbound. And acknowledging the graphic that Cindy and her team prepared as a way to frame our thinking. So one, we think about this multi-generational investment. We've heard about the 35 plus or minus city blocks that are going to be impacted, which is both for underground utilities and street level experience. And we see it as an opportunity to advance our City for Health brand. And we recognize that the work is going to get done by Mayo and by the city and to a certain extent by DMC, but primarily in the role and the way in which it can help provide resources. This graphic is intended to characterize that there is the red innermost concentric circle is an area of significant impact. The green circle, area of integration, we're calling it the area of integration, and then the further out concentric circle, area of significant impact. And
Area of opportunity.
Area of opportunity, I'm sorry. Area of opportunity. And I think if we look at that largest concentric circle, we actually might see that the mid-block connection that you just authorized is in that larger circle. So these are not intended to be precise. They are intended to show how we're thinking about this geography. In your packet, we have a draft of the work we've been doing to create a shared set of goals, a shared set of principles that we are bringing to you. The city is bringing it to City Council for discussion, and I know, Doug and Aaron, you've had discussion with your leadership teams as well as we try to further develop and refine these. So I don't necessarily need to spend any more time walking through them as they're in your packet with more detail, and maybe just open the floor to any other comments from Cindy or Aaron or Doug before we ask the board to comment.
Thank you, Patrick. The only comment I would say is it is honestly just a real honor to work with the people to the left of me to get direction from you as policy influencers in this community, as well as the city council and the respective teammates that work across our organizations. It is astounding the level of collaboration that has happened over the past year. And just as an example, when we said, what's driving our work, in a matter of minutes, this team here said, we've got to have some guiding principles, and we quickly came together. And I think it is just representative of the spirit of cooperation that we are seeing, and is what is going to help us get through the next 5 years and come out even stronger physically and from a social network of collaboration. So thank you.
I would just add, I hope it gives all of you confidence, and it gives this community confidence that we are all sitting together and working to collaborate to make sure that we're optimizing that experience during construction, that we're bringing people along with us, that we're keeping people informed and engaged as we move through this process. And we're thinking about that connectivity and not just in and around Mayo's campus, but into the community. And so that's really what these guiding principles or these shared principles represent, is how we want to work together, one, to give people a wonderful experience at Mayo Clinic, our patients, our visitors, our staff, but also, as we think about Link Bus Rapid Transit, as we think about the Bold Forward Unbound project and the other projects that we know are coming into the downtown area, that we're collectively thinking about how we bring a great experience to the community. So we hope this all gives you confidence in our work together, that we'll continue to do that.
Maybe just one last thing to add. I've been at Mayo for 34 years in my role for almost a decade, involved in facility projects, and the level of partnership and coordination has never been as strong as it is today. And that's a testament to our partners at the city, Cindy and staff, Patrick with DMC, and my Mayo colleagues. So I echo what everyone else has said, confidence that we are working together.
Thank you. And we have Member Campbell with your hand up.
Well, I think this is really one of the highest priorities that this board must address with what we're facing over the next few years of this incredible project that's in front of us. I'm not in the state of Minnesota, but I read the Minnesota Star Tribune every morning. And the last few days, there have been several articles about how Rochester is going to be impacted by what's ahead of us. And so, from my perspective, I think communication to the citizens of Rochester is absolutely going to be critical. If we think we are going to communicate X, we should think about communicating 3X or 5X. I mean, we must over communicate with the people that live there and are going to have to deal with the issues that are going to surface as a result of this spectacular project. So I just, I think what we're talking about here is absolutely the most important issue that we need to address going forward.
Thank you. Other Member Schubring?
Well, I just want to say, also commend the team there. I think I may be the only one here that actually has had a role in all three organizations after I was sworn in this morning on the DMCC board. And I want to commend the partnership that I'm seeing and the foresight and just synergy with the Dig Once idea, really going into the ground and making sure that we as a city are taking advantage of what Mayo Clinic is doing in that area to ensure that we're upgrading our infrastructure at the same time, and then DMC support on top of that. This moment that we're in with the Bold Forward Unbound program being launched and having the value that DMC brings to this city and that partnership from the city, I just am excited to watch the next 5 to 7 years. And I think, as you said, I see that those relationships are in a great place to begin that. So thank you.
Other comments? Member Ryback?
Well, one of the things the first thing to say is thank you. I think the idea that Mayo's making this investment in the state of Minnesota is awesome. And the integration of the teams is tremendous progress from where we began and all that. A couple of things that I would just like to lay out on that is, from the beginning, I've seen this, the most significant issue in front of us is actually a mobility issue. How we move people in and out, where they park, how they walk, and their sense of arrival. And I think we're making real progress in some of those. West Transit Village is an example of beginning to integrate those issues. I do want you to explore this sense of arrival a little bit. And when we were originally talking about this West Transit Village, the idea of saying to someone who is maybe facing a very tough moment when they're coming to the clinic, just drive down 52, take a right, go into that parking, and immediately you're embraced by Mayo. The transit piece is, there's communication or whatever else. But right now, when somebody arrives here, there's this incredibly integrated experience within Mayo, but there's not an integrated experience from the time you arrive in the town. So the moment you're coming into the community to the time you get into this integrated experience at Mayo is not integrated yet. And so I think that's an issue for all of us to face. I had argued at one point for you to have an intake center at the West Transit Village so that someone could be part of that. I don't know where that will land ultimately, but can you just continue to think about that? You were really good partners in the West Transit Village. I don't think we're done. There are other areas and other directions we're going to have to look at. And I know, Doug, your job is to build parking ramps, and we've asked you to be a community builder. And we're going to have to ask you that again as we do this. Because one of the great opportunities in this town is there's still a lot of surface parking. And if we can figure out a way to free up that land, we're going to do even more. But that means that we're going to have to give people an enhanced experience on that. I also want to put in a word for a bizarre pet project of mine, but one that I think matters a lot. And it goes back to this idea about what is Mayo giving back to the community and the whole state of Minnesota. As a kid, I went to the Mayo Medical Museum a lot. My wife and I have talked about it. It was this really Ripley's, believe it or not, kind of gross experience, honestly. But it was fascinating because I saw the first artificial heart there. It was the size of a room. When you think about the incredible innovations that Mayo is making, and you think about the Spam Museum, there's some area that part of this could be about an experience where every kid who's interested in science comes to the Mayo Museum that's part of this to really understand your incredible story and the innovations that are taking place. If you're not a patient at Mayo, you don't get exposed to that. And Mayo's ability to help lift interest in medicine and science and health could be dramatically enhanced by you thinking more about that idea of what is the front face to people who aren't your patients. So I just want to kind of put in a word for that random idea as well.
Thank you. I know Patrick has, maybe others have some comments. It does remind me of the days when I used to work for the Minnesota Wild, and we would say the fan experience begins when they leave their house to come to a game and ends when they arrive back home. So this concept of arrival resonates with me, and the experience upon arriving in Rochester. And for me, part of this discussion about how do we think about this work and the guiding principles are those strategic opportunities. I mean, we've talked about the DMC area and the connection to the surrounding neighborhoods. Is there a strategic geographic priority where we really want to be intentional about finding ways to work in partnership with the city, the county, with Mayo, around enhancing key corridors, and how do we think about maybe below grade and above grade as well. What I'm less excited about is the idea that because there is available state funding that we're going to deal with every deferred maintenance issue the community has in this geographic area. And so somewhere we need to, you need to bring me along, or you need to help me understand the strategic opportunity that helps advance our goals when we think about, and I applaud the idea of dig once and do this right. And the last thing I would say is I think to do all of that, we're going to need to have our partners advance their public engagement and organizational planning at the same time we're doing that as we think about our 5-year plan update, so that everyone is ready to jump on board of those partnership opportunities as they present themselves when contracts need to be signed and financing needs to be finalized. I think Patrick may have had a comment.
Not responding to RT's comments. I really did want to say I may have buried the lead here. The reason we're talking about these shared principles is because they do come with a price attached. And so when we talk dig once, there is a price attached with that priority, because we are saying, let's do this so we aren't tearing up 5, 10, 12 years, 15 years from now. It's 50 years from now. So all of these and the size of those concentric circles, I mean, the gateway into, does it begin at Highway 52, and does it begin at South Broadway? So there is a price attached to these principles, and so that's why we're having this discussion, because we intend to try to play back to you what it takes to achieve and serve up to these principles, and how big of an appetite does this board have, does Mayo have, does the city have to achieve all of these. And I think we want to probably start big and bold, and then recognize where we have capacity at this moment.
The only comment that I will make, and then I'll turn it over to Member Norton, is it may be a combination of circles and corridors, and to
Sure.
achieve that
Yeah.
kind of strategic.
Certainly.
So, and the corridors may extend beyond your concentric circles, so.
Certainly.
That would be my additional comment. Member Norton?
Sure, and thank you. I really look forward to the discussions as we move ahead with this. I know Chair Wheelock has some concerns that we do need to talk about moving ahead, but I want to comment on, what do I call you, Commissioner Ryback, Doc Ryback, whatever, today. The comments that you made about having that place that is the start of your experience, and I hope we continue to think about that, talk about that. And the idea of the museum, I chuckled when you said this, because if you're on social media at all in Rochester and you look at the comments that people make, and there's an old Rochester group, and there's all sorts of stuff out there. That comment about their experience as a young person in this community, the memories they have about that museum are huge. The impact it had on people who live here, and I think if we can ignite that idea again, I think it's not only good for the people who live here who can feel the world impact that Mayo Clinic has as a resident here will only get better and grow, but also for patients who come here and their families who are looking for things to do. It serves both those purposes. So I hope we continue to have that discussion. It did come up in the Rochester Visioning exercise as something that's missing, so I just lay it out there. Let's keep talking about it, and even more talking about it. I hope someone whether it be Mayo or a private company, I hope somebody grabs it and runs with it. And the last piece I want to just mention is this idea of not giving up on the vision of the downtown. We started the work in Peace Plaza. There is more work to do. It's kind of not in this, and I know there's some issues, but we need to finish that work. And whatever it takes to finish it, because that's what you see. It starts at Peace Plaza and the Galleria, but it goes all the way to the doors of Mayo Clinic, and that area is tired and worn and also needs to be addressed, and we have to find a way to address the issues and realize that part of the vision and not just shove it aside and not do it. So I just wanted to put that out there too.
Mr. Holton and then Member Williams.
Okay, thank you. Just want to respond to a couple of things that Mayor Ryback brought up, and I really do appreciate the comments. First, I'm a townie too, so, museum, the progressive tonsillectomy, everything. Definitely appreciate that. Heritage Hall is one way that we try to provide some history, but, as we reprogram space with our new build, we're still in the programming phase for the public side of things in our new build, and I will definitely bring that up, and that is something that has come up many times, and I do appreciate that. Thank you. And I will say, arrival is key. As we talk about arrival on our campus, that is part of our bold forward, having a key arrival center. But I do want to step back, and since I have the platform, I will say this. We are the third largest city in the state of Minnesota, one of the busiest highways in the state of Minnesota, Highway 52, and you take a hard left to go to 52 or 14. We need MnDOT infrastructure in this town to support us the way other towns that are smaller than us have. And I will say Duluth.
Yeah.
So put a plug in there. We need help in our highway infrastructure in this town to support the growth of Rochester. Thank you.
Thank you. Good point. Member Williams.
Madam Chair, I was just going to build on this, the notion of shared goals. One, I think the 5-year update, and again, my point around qualitative engagement and encouraging buy-in through that process is an opportunity to kind of emphasize and deepen that as we get into harder decisions and really costing out and really making choices. And just the importance of the collaboration and the communication. I think, as Member Campbell mentioned earlier, I think the communication is important. And just a shout out to Aaron Sexton, who on my way down here this morning, I heard on public radio talking about these very issues. So good job there. But I just think that collaboration, the joint meeting that we have coming up, is another opportunity. And just the more that we're able to keep talking about this and stay in it with each other, I think is important. And bravo on the collaboration.
Additional comments, Member Time?
And I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but, so Dr. Mark Warner is the chair of the Olmsted County History Center, and Tuesday, the Olmsted County Board agreed to host their request up into the legislature for bonding to expand the History Center, which their plans, their hopes anyway, are to include a revival of the Mayo's Medical Museum in the History Center. So there may be progress, and if you support it, that would be great.
That's great to know, thank you. Other comments? Well,
Doug
seeing
has
none.
I'm sorry, Doug Baker.
Oh, thank you, Doug. I'm sorry, Member Baker.
So it's not like downtown.
Oh, you're on mute, I think.
Yeah, sorry, trying to use both electronic and actual. So I just had a couple of thoughts and comments. First, Mayo arrival. Mayo is spending a lot of time, as you might imagine, thinking about how they're going to continue to have a warm arrival experience for their patients through all the construction. So I don't think this is lost on Mayo, the importance here. You know, the long-term West Transit Village, this is more a personal opinion than any. I hear the goal. I don't know if that's going to be a big arrival point for many patients. I mean, it's a significant change in habits and practices. I do believe it's going to be an invaluable place for a number of Mayo associates and employees. I think it's in many ways geared towards that. But if you sit in front of Mayo at the valet and watch the incoming, there are a huge percentage that are not going to be able to go to the West Transit, trek over to a bus, move on the bus, go downstairs, trek through another couple, blocks underground. I think we got to be realistic. The second is, I think transportation in the next 20 years, 30 years is going to change dramatically as a consequence of EVs, which I don't believe are dead as we go. EVs and automated driving is going to enable cars to be much smaller, much lighter weight. And I believe the change will come, and you see it now with some of the robo-taxi designs, et cetera. So it's hard, I think, for us to forecast exactly what this is going to look like, but I think it'll be quite different. And we should keep our minds open to that because we keep designing for the past, I think, too much and thinking about it as opposed to the future. The second thing I wanted to say is this conversation about who pays for what, which I think is at the heart of the issue. So I think the shared goals and principles about digging once makes all the sense in the world. We need to minimize the problems that this huge construction project creates and make sure that we don't, by inadvertently hurt a lot of the businesses by having construction in front of them over a long period of time. And I can think of uptown Minneapolis as a great example of what you don't want to do as you go through this. So I think that's exactly right. But it seems to be on this expense thing that the principles of depreciation, like real depreciation, not accounting depreciation, i.e. if it's accelerated, we're digging up pipes 30 years early, then thinking about how that guides who covers what could be designed. And I don't think those principles would be that hard as we go through this, but I think they're probably important to set out and do. So certainly if the city had just dug up and put new infrastructure, and as a consequence of the Mayo, we've got to dig it up immediately, that shouldn't be borne by the city. At the same time, if we're digging up 40-year-old pipes that are going to be replaced anyway, I'm not sure. It seems to me the city ought to have some part of that for sure. So I think thinking about those principles as well would be quite helpful for all of us to think through it. And lastly, this museum idea I've never heard is quite intriguing. And so that's interesting, and I'm glad you guys brought it up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will undoubtedly talk about this again as we move forward, both as part of our planning and as our action items. And it is not lost on me that this is both required and developed a meaningful, effective partnership between multiple organizations and the key stakeholders representing those organizations. This is hard work. You're forging new paths, and you're cajoling and forcing some of us to think about things differently as well, and that's never easy or quick. So I will thank you for that, and I know this represents significant work and trust building among the parties involved, so thank you for that. All right, thank you, and that brings us to, I believe, the last item on our agenda, which is the capital project reports. I don't know that there are any, I don't believe there are any slides that you need to share with us or conversations, so I'll just ask. These are the staff reports that are at the end of your packet. If there are any questions or comments about any of them, now would be the right time to raise those. And seeing no hands, I think that means that we are ready to adjourn. I will just say our next meeting is the Executive Committee, which I mentioned, on March 26th at 9:30 at the Mayo Civic Center, so right here, I'm not sure what room, but in this building. And the next regular board meeting is on the morning of the 22nd of May at the Civic Center, and then the collaborative meeting will follow that as well. So we look forward to seeing you at any or all of those, and thank you for your time here today. We stand adjourned.